Welcome to Pop Goes the Stack, the podcast about emerging technology and the unintended chaos it leaves in its wake. I'm your host, Lori MacVittie, here to translate technology hype into human speak. Helping me today to discuss various security-related topics is, of course, our co-host, Joel Moses. Or maybe it's deepfake Joel today. We're never really sure.
Who knows?
And one of our favorite security commentators, Chuck Herrin. So let's go. Let's talk about security, the AI arms race. Everybody's talking about how AI is launching attacks more and more. There's a number floating around there, like 36,000 automated attacks a second. It's a lot, but it's volumetric. I mean, volumetric is boring. We know how to deal with that, right? The new arms race is really where AI is smart. It's doing all sorts of things. It's building new attacks. It's building other attacks. It's using them. It's really more complex than just, hey, it's really fast. I mean, that's kind of standard stuff. So what do you think, right? Should we be worried about the volume, or should we really be looking at the new and various ways that AI is going to mess up our stacks?
I would say, ¿por qué no los dos? Why not both? We need to worry about the volume. But
pick one.
Yeah.
But the intelligence is really the part that's shortening the kill chain. And I think from a defender's perspective, that's the most difficult part to deal with is shortening the kill chain. And we're seeing AI models now do things like sift through LinkedIn profiles, sift through social media, bounce that up against the dossiers that these criminal organizations have created against all of us, especially public figures and high profile, high net worth individuals and so forth, and really shortening that attack pattern with much more at the output, much more convincing phishing emails, deep fakes, these types of things. So I think the average click rate right now on an AI generated phishing campaign is about 54%, which is compared to 12 to 16% for a human generated phishing email. And I personally, get a lot of phishing, voice phishing messages that used to be some dude in Chennai trying to convince me that his name was James and I had a problem with my Google account. Well, now he sounds just like some, 30-year-old white guy out of North Carolina calling me and saying, this is James and I've got a problem with your Google account, coming from a North Carolina point of origin. So the attacks are much more, not only are they higher in volume, but they're much more effective and they're happening much more quickly. So I think we've got to deal with this sort of on all fronts. It's a real challenge for defenders, and and they're only getting better.
I think we've got a double-edged sword situation going on here. The technology of artificial intelligence is democratized. I mean, anybody has access to it. You can rent time on AI complexes pretty much in any hypervisor cloud these days. So the bar to entry to use the technology is fairly low. And what it's done for the attacker set is it's made the amateur attacker a far more effective beast. And again, AI is a democratized technology. It's available to defenders, but it's available to attackers in equal measure, and they are clearly making use of it. There's been an increasing amount of scanning activity in general since AI has risen, about a 16% increase year over year, which is largely due to the democratization and the ease of use that it's added to a lot of the popular technologies that attackers use, the kits that they use to launch these global attacks.
Yeah, but we've seen that before. I mean, you mentioned, right, there's kits. It democratizes it. I mean, I remember when the script kiddies were able to rent botnets to do these same things, and we were alarmed then about the volume and the size. And I think in terms of volume, it's not, right, the directed volume, because we've seen, right, really big, like DDoS and attacks, and we know how to stop that. But as Chuck is mentioning, more the breadth, right? Yeah. How it's able to like broaden what it attacks and almost coordinate, right? If you get a, phishing message, right, or a smishing message, right, and you just see that, you might dismiss it. But if you also see like maybe an email and a voicemail, right, or even somebody like private messaging you on a social media channel, suddenly it becomes more real because like they're really trying to talk to you, right? It's not just one off.
Yeah. And folks over 60 are over 40% more likely to fall for it. So we all have relatives that, like with their Facebook accounts, that they should never have internet access today anyway. That they don't have a good BS detector. But when it comes to fooling someone, digital natives, I think, are better positioned to deal with this than a lot of folks, that are a little more aged and up in years, because we just weren't conditioned growing up in the 70s and 80s to deal with these types of things. And I think that we're going to see a lot of increase in fraud and elder care and elder abuse. That is because that's where so much money is from the fraudsters. So AI powered fraud is only about 6.5% of fraud right now, but that 6.5% is a 2,100% increase year over year. And the troubling part to me as a defender and as someone with relatives and children to worry about as well outside of the professional sphere, this is as bad as these models are ever going to be. They're only going to get better. And already the top attacker on the HackerOne leaderboard is an AI model. On the HackerOne charts, the best hacker in the world is already AI. And that's deeply troubling, deeply concerning.
Yeah. I think, if you look at the state of the attacker tools today, as opposed to several years ago, it was like giving you a package of tools and giving you the instructions to assemble a cabinet, like woodworking tools to assemble a cabinet. These days, it's more like the attacker is given an IKEA flat pack. And the ease of assembly of the tools and the quality of the thing that results is rather standard. It's consistent. Whereas before, an attacker who was really skilled with the tools was effective, but the ones that were not so skilled with the tools still were the background clutter that we had to deal with. Now everything is a lot more homogenous.
Yeah, but it's also the way that they're able to attack, right? It's not just that they're, like brute forcing credentials. Right? There's that big leak we all heard about, right? 16 billion credentials. It wasn't really a leak. It was more, hey, we found out where all the leaked stuff is, right? It was a data ocean.
Right.
So they don't have to brute force. They already have how to get in. It's what they do after they get in. And AI, especially models and these scripts that might be driven by them, are actually able to navigate like a real user and infer and understand what they're doing and looking for, as opposed to here's a URI. I'm just going to keep, trying to do directory traversal or these old style attacks. So they're able to think almost, and that's really what makes them even more dangerous, because if you stop 99,000, right, but one gets in, that you're still in trouble.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Vibe hacking is a thing, right? Like it's
he said it. He said the word. He said the word.
It's a thing. These attackers now have tools at their disposal where they can abstract a lot of the complexity that they don't have to understand this stuff as much anymore. And to Joel's point earlier, it's the breadth of what's available to them that they don't have to put the time in and learn hardware hacking and social engineering and English grammatical structures and this and that. They can abstract all that complexity to these tools. And when I think of things like outside of the social engineering aspect, think of the web and mobile attacks that we've seen over the last couple of years. The increases in functionality for fuzzing and enumeration of attack surface using evolutionary fuzzing, for example, make it much easier to discover your APIs that are exposed to the outside world and other interfaces that defenders may not be aware of. And way too many companies are still starting their journey to get their attack surface under control with an Excel spreadsheet. Like, I don't know what step 4 of your API security journey looks like if you start with an Excel spreadsheet, but it's not success.
That's a good point. And attackers are also able to execute using artificial intelligence highly precise attacks. They're taking lessons learned in pharmaceutical development, where AI models are being used to develop precision drug regimens based on someone's DNA. Well, on the flip side, the attackers are able to deliver polymorphic viruses and very targeted things that are specifically designed to elicit a response from a very specific system and target. It's getting to be to the point where the tools allow the attacker to zero in very precisely on the environment that they're targeting. And we should expect more of that in the future. The technology is very good at combing through a wide array of data and designing very precise mechanisms to fit that particular scenario.
Okay, now you've scared everyone, and everyone's ready to just, all right, just give up, right? How should we defend against that, right? What should we be doing in order to better defend against that, other than, okay, we should be able to detect them, right? But we have to be careful, because we can't just say, well, it's AI, we're going to block it, because it may be in the future, very soon, maybe
Right.
tomorrow, an agent that is acting on my behalf,
Correct.
and it should be allowed access. So we can't just outright block. So what do we do in order to stop this before it consumes our entire, I don't know, business, infrastructure, apps, everything? And there you have it. That is
No,
the answer. There's nothing.
That's a great question. Yeah. Look, like I said earlier, the technology is democratized. The defenders have equivalent access to the types of AI mechanisms that attackers use to make themselves more effective. And a defender can be effective by using artificial intelligence tools as well to comb through the array of data that they're facing. In my opinion, everything kind of centers around the acknowledgement of an identity, and validation and authorization and authentication of identities. And on the flip side, one thing that can be very effective is looking at the behaviors of specific identities that are accessing your applications. I think that that's probably going to be the way in the future that we defend against these types of attacks.
So Joel's answer is zero trust. Okay, Chuck, what's your answer?
Yeah. So I think three things. I mean, I think zero trust is definitely valid and a key part of it. The first thing that comes to mind is, if you don't have your arms around your attack surface, get your arms around your attack surface right the hell now. Because it's like, you cannot defend what you can't see. There's nothing more true than that in cybersecurity. The second thing is to kind of double click on one of Joel's points about leveraging AI tools. We really need to be thinking about AI native defense. To use a Texas, sort of analogy, I don't live in Texas anymore, but it takes a good guy with AI to fight a bad guy with AI. That's absolutely accurate, right? You can't keep up manually. It's just that you're doomed to fail. And the third thing I think is really, really important, and that is educate your security teams. CISOs and security operations teams need to deeply understand how AI works and how AI-based attacks and defense works, for a couple of reasons. First, one of Herrin's rules is you can't secure that which you don't understand. You just can't, right? It's not possible. Secondly, when an AI-powered defense becomes mandatory, that stack that you're using for defense now becomes a potential force multiplier used against you. And these AI-powered security tools expose a new attack surface that we haven't had to worry about in security tooling before. So if you go back to 25 years ago when I started penetration testing, my favorite tools were always part of, say, the Windows admin toolkit, right? Windows internal admin utilities. And you can turn those against you. And if I can turn your security stack against you, I've really got you by the ears, right? It's a really bad part. It's a really bad time, because these agents, the AI agents that we're going to be using for defense, are going to have tremendous amounts of access to data, tremendous amounts of access to telemetry, and very highly privileged identities. So if your security team doesn't understand how to secure the AI native security stack, you're really going to have a bad time. So I think that we really have to get ahead of this from an educational perspective. Way too many defenders and CISOs are still saying things in conferences and on LinkedIn and others like, it's just autocomplete on steroids. It is not. And while I was in Australia a few weeks ago, and one of the CISOs there said, we blocked it. We just blocked it all. And I told the guy, kind of pulled him aside afterwards and gently said, something to the effect of, that's the denial phase. Now, what I'd like to do is try to get you through anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. That we're going to have to leverage these tools in a defensive mechanism. Otherwise, it's simply way too asymmetric.
Yeah, and security staff needs to be educated, and it sounds like I'm going back in history to say the same thing over and over again. But end users also have to be told that the surface has changed, the way that they're going to be engaged, and the things that they are going to see expressed, trying to obtain data from them. Those have changed markedly, and they need to be prepared for that. So don't forget end user education as well.
So frantically looking for data because we just did an AI survey, right? And we asked some free form questions like, what's your strategy to secure AI in general? And so 7% were focused on compliance and protective tools, right? GDPR and HIPAA will solve that. What? Okay. All right. Ignoring that, it was only 7%. So, okay. Next was traditional end-to-end data control, right? So just your traditional end-to-end kind of style security. Well, we'll put firewalls and things like that. Well, okay. 35% were all about encryption because, encrypted AI traffic is safe and non-encrypted AI traffic is not. It's never a panacea. It's a good idea, but it's not like the be all and end all. It's not going to actually do anything to stop attacks once they're in. It's just going to make them harder to see. 19% were already at the AI and system level security. So it needs to be embedded in every single thing we do. And I think AI has finally brought home the reality when people said, it has to be secure by design. We have to build security in from step one. That's actually what we're seeing. AI makes that not just a, hey, you're best in class. It's a necessity. You have to start and build this kind of security into everything that we're doing and leverage AI in order to, get a handle on at least some of this. It's not going to solve everything, but at least start there.
True.
Yeah. And I think we're going to see an acceleration in some trends that I've already been observing. Things like platform consolidation, supply chain consolidation, tightening down. Supply chain risk is a nightmare already. And when everybody in your supply chain is trying to AI all the things, now you've got a whole lot more to worry about. Where the key to this, I think, really is going to be, I think in the next few years, we're going to see, I've seen predictions around, 90% of companies are going to have 15 or fewer security tools in their stack. Just because getting 10% out of 90 tools is way harder to manage than getting 90% out of 10 tools. So, having tight integrations between things like your application delivery platforms and your SIEM and your SOAR and your XDR, right? Pick out the important parts of your stack and then start thinking of best of platform rather than best of breed point solutions that were brought to market by a bunch of startups, right? No CISO in the history of CISOing has ever looked at a really well integrated stack and said, no, I'd really rather cobble that together from a bunch of startups that are going to get bought by somebody like Broadcom, and I get to deal with that in a couple of years. Right? It really is going to be simplify your stack and make your attack surface manageable. Get that end-to-end visibility and then automate as much as you can. But you can't do that without observability. You can't do that without doing the fundamentals first. So while the AI is raising the bar on these attacks, a lot of these are just fundamentals we've been saying for years.
Yeah, that's true.
These fundamentals are no longer discretionary, right? You're not going to be successful if you ignore the fundamentals anymore.
Right. Yeah. You everything you both have been saying the whole time, right? You have to be able to detect, be able to recognize, to see, it all points back to observability as being like a key, foundational component of not just security, but everything having to do with AI and infrastructure. That's really important, and having the right kind of telemetry coming off, not just, it responded in, 5 seconds. Right. You need to know what it was responding and who it was responding to and why, and decision making.
Now, don't forget that the flip side of observability is also responsiveness, and the burden to respond to these dynamic and changing attacks is going to be ever critical. And so if you're going to choose a platform approach, choose a platform approach that has a decent way to do very quick remediation. And in some cases, you're going to need to customize that remediation to the custom attack that you're facing. So that's why I think in the future, heavily programmable responses and remediations are going to be incredibly important to embed into your security solution as a protective factor.
Totally. Yeah. Well, to double click on something, Joel, that you mentioned earlier, when you mentioned polymorphic AI generated malware, things like signature-based detections are wholly inadequate in this environment, right? So this polymorphic malware that AI is helping these attackers create, it has the same exact execution, but totally different code bases and signatures, right? So that doesn't work anymore. We need to be thinking much more of a behavioral-based defense?
Right.
What looks different? Because that deviation from a behavioral norm is the best indicator of a potential breach condition, even if you don't understand who's doing what or what's happening exactly. But if you don't have that end-to-end observability and then the programmability, as you just said, if something looks weird, do X, right? Shunt it to a AI-powered honeypot or something, whatever you want to do. You can't do any of that without observability and automation.
That's right.
If you don't have that end-to-end visibility, you cannot fight on this battlefield. So that's just to pull out a specific example from something that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and the ability to like react in real time requires the programmability. You have to be able to see it. You have to be able to create some sort of defense against it and then immediately deploy it. And that really implies like all three of those things, right? They're going to work in concert, and the automation to do it, of course, because you don't want to be 2 a.m, 2:05 a.m, 2:06, right? I mean, that's just not going to cut it. So
yeah, in many ways, it's classical kill chain engineering. It just has to be done at a greater degree of depth from a behavioral perspective and much, much faster.
Yep,
much faster.
and we can't ignore the fundamentals. Like if Joel's going to chart a course to compete in Mr. Olympia, he's going to need posing trunks. He's going to need oil. He's going to need a routine. He's also going to need to join a gym, right?
I'm already there,
Well,
Chuck.
this, like, people keep missing the fundamentals, right? It's like Ronnie Coleman said, everybody wants to look like a bodybuilder. Nobody wants to lift any heavy ass weight.
No.
We can't ignore the fundamentals. And way too many defenders are looking for tools that can excuse them from the basics. And it just doesn't work. It never will. It never has.
But on that note, maybe we should shift your focus to like the three things that we think we learned today and people should take away. And Joel, bodybuilding, like that whole thing should not be part of it.
No.
So we'll just let's go with like three security related things that we learned today, and we'll have a discussion about Joel and his bodybuilding offline. Yeah.
All right. Well, the three things that I'm going to take away from this discussion today is the element that you still have to do the basics. I think that's key. That making sure that your executives are educated to go about the threat surface, making sure that you understand the threats that are facing you, making sure your users understand the threats. That's important. I also, second, my takeaway is observability is important. You cannot protect what you do not see, and so making sure that your observability is nailed down is a great idea. And third, the pace of attacks and the changing nature of attacks is going to require first a shift from things like fingerprinting and hashing, and more into analyzing the behaviors of individual identities. And that has to be done dynamically, and your responses also have to be done dynamically as well. Chuck?
I really echo those same three learnings, right? The other thing is, if you haven't addressed the fundamentals yet, it's never going to get easier than right now, right? The models are as bad as they're ever going to be, and they're already at the top of the hacker charts. So that they're only getting more effective, and it's only going to get harder. Like the older you get, and going back to the gym analogy, we'll keep Joel out of it specifically. But if you don't feel like going to the gym this morning, just wait till later when you're younger and healthier. Right? It's never going to be too early to start. And we need to get our attack surfaces under control, because it's not just AI that's the attack surface of tomorrow. We're also racing towards a quantum future. And if you don't have your attack surface under control now, you're really going to have a bad time when you have to update all the encryption everywhere and be ready to do that at a moment's notice. So it's really easy when it...
That sounds like another podcast entirely.
It is, yeah. Well, it's really easy when a defender is drowning, though, to only worry about what's happening today and not worry about what's happening, at the next bend of the river you're drowning in. That future is coming. And it's not enough to just think about how do we tactically react to today's attacks. We need to be laying the groundwork, which is the same fundamentals and end-to-end visibility and observability that we've been talking about, to get ready for the attack surface of tomorrow. That's the main lesson I want to leave is, don't just worry about what's happening from 2024 to 2025. 2024 to 2025 is nothing compared to what we're going to see 2025 to 2027.
Such happy things. But I would echo that, right? It's not just about, wow, we have to do something now. It's also about, we're going to have to do something in the future. And right now we're just talking about models and automation, and we haven't even started talking about things like agentic AI and how is that going to introduce even weirder surfaces. So getting those foundations, you're right, is like a critical first step. And then actually thinking about, and how do I build this out and build a program that can sustain it and continue to adapt into the future that is coming, because we can guess what those threats are going to look like and what the risks might be, but until it actually like shows up, we're not positive, right? There's always
Yeah.
something that we couldn't account for. So set the foundations and set up a way of working and moving forward that's going to keep adapting as all of this AI changes, right?
Yeah. Essentially, it's a good time to think about exposing your attack surface on purpose. Most companies landed multi-cloud, but not by design. Right? It was either via acquisition or different groups within the organization had different clouds that they liked better or whatever, and on-premises never went away. It's a really good time to take a half step back and design your attack surface intentionally. And that's a big part of what we do at F5. So that, I think that's a really important takeaway. And of course, Joel's bodybuilding.
Joel's bodybuilding. We all support a program that encourages Joel to go to the gym. Yeah, with that, I'm going to say that's a wrap for Pop Goes the Stack this time. So if your stack is still upright, celebrate by subscribing and maybe mainlining some caffeine. We'll see you next time for more hype translated into human speak with subtitles for the carnage included.